We're going to take Unit 7 Grammar, Comparatives and Superlatives, page 61. So let's first remember how can we form the comparatives and superlatives forms. Making a comparative and superlative adjectives. So to make the comparative form of adjectives, like bigger or more expensive, so you have to understand that we have adjectives with one syllable, like big, and we have adjectives with two or more syllables, like expensive. So with the adjectives of one syllable, we add the er, and with the other adjectives that have more than one syllable, like two syllables or three syllables, we add the word more to the adjective. So for big, we say bigger, and for expensive, we say more expensive, because it has more than one syllable. What about the superlative form? Again, the same rule. We have adjectives with one syllable. We add to it est, and if the adjective or the adverb has more than one syllable, we add most before the adjective or the adverb. So first, we have to know how many syllables are in the adjective or in the adverb. Adjectives with one syllable. Usually, if an adjective has only one syllable, we add er to the adjective to make the comparative form, and we add est to make the superlative form. So, in the comparative form for clean, we say cleaner, we added the er. In the superlative, we say cleanest, we added the est. Cold, colder, comparative, coldest, superlative. Small, smaller, comparative, smallest, superlative. Young, younger, comparative, youngest, superlative. Tall, taller, comparative, tallest, superlative. And remember, after you add the er in the comparative, you have to add the word than. So you have to say cleaner than, colder than, smaller than, younger than, taller than. Okay? But with the superlative, you have to add the word the before the adjective. So you say the cleanest, the coldest, the smallest, the youngest, the tallest. So there are some spelling changes. If there is one vowel followed by one consonant at the end of the adjective, we often double the consonant. So for example, wet, we double the consonant T, so it's wetter, wetter than in the comparative, and the wettest in the superlative. Big, double the G, so it's bigger than in the comparative, the biggest in the superlative. Hotter than, comparative, the hottest, superlative. Thinner than, comparative, the thinnest, superlative. So be careful of the vowel that is followed by one consonant. We have to double the consonant. Here, double T, double G, double T, and double N in thinner. If the adjective ends in Y, this often changes to I. So dry, we change the Y into I, and then we add the ER. So it's drier than in the comparative form and driest in the superlative form. Remember again, we use the comparative form to compare between two people or two things. So you can say tea is hotter than the coffee, or the coffee is colder than the tea. So you are comparing between two things, or you are comparing between two persons. So you can say Sally is taller than Noha, or Noha is shorter than Sally. For the superlative, you are comparing between one thing or one person and lots of other things. So you can say the elephant is the biggest animal in the zoo. So you are comparing between the elephant and all the other animals in the zoo. But with persons, you can say the same thing. So you can say Soha is the tallest girl in the class. So again, you are comparing between Soha and all the girls in the class. So let's go back to the syllables of the adjectives. If the adjective ends in E, we don't add another E. We just add the R. So nice ends with E. So nicer, we just add the R in the comparative. And in the superlative, nicest. Large, larger, largest. There are few adjectives that we have to use more or most with, even though they only have one syllable. We cannot add ER or EST, and these are exceptions. So they are adjectives with one syllable only, but we have to use with them more or most. More with the comparative and most with the superlative. So for example, fun, more fun, comparative, most fun. We don't say funner or funnest, it's wrong. Real, more real in the comparative and most real in the superlative. Again, we don't say realer or realist. Right, more right, most right. We don't say writer or rightest. Wrong, more wrong or most wrong. We don't say wronger or wrongest. Adjectives with two syllables. So for adjectives with two syllables, we generally use more in the comparative form and most in the superlative form. So careful, it has two syllables. So that's why we say more careful in the comparative, most careful in the superlative. Bored, more bored, or most bored. But some two-syllable adjectives can take ER or EST. So for example, clever, cleverer, simple, simpler, narrow, narrower, quiet, quieter. Adjectives with two syllables that end in Y usually can add ER or EST. Y generally changes to I. So dirty, we change the Y into I and then we add the ER. So dirtier in the comparative, dirtier than, and in the superlative, dirtiest, the dirtiest. Pretty, prettier than, the prettiest. Happy, happier than, the happiest. Ugly, uglier than, the ugliest. Adjectives with more than two syllables. So with adjectives with more than two syllables, we can only make their comparative by using the word more and their superlatives by using the word most. So beautiful, more beautiful in the comparative, or most beautiful in the superlative. Intelligent, more intelligent than comparative, the most intelligent superlative. Interesting, more interesting than, or the most interesting. Expensive, more expensive than, or the most expensive. Then we have irregular adjectives, and there are also these irregular adjectives, and we have to learn them. There is no rule for them. You just have to memorize them. Good, it's better in the comparative, and best in the superlative. Bad, worse, worst, far. Here you have two answers. You can say farther and farthest, or you can say further and furthest. Both are correct. Little, less, least, much, more, most. Now let's go back to the book. So, comparative and superlative adverbs. We can use also the adverbs for the comparative and superlative forms. So we usually form comparative and superlative adverbs with more and most. However, we add er to some adverbs, of course, some short adverbs, or the adverbs with one syllable. So please drive more slowly. Slowly is an adverb, and it's a long one, so that's why we added more. Mom drives faster than dad. Fast is an adverb, but it's a short one. It has only one syllable, so that's why we added er to it. Less and least. Less is the opposite of more, and least is the opposite of most. So we can use them with adjectives and adverbs. Who finished the exercise least quickly? So we added least before the adverb. Comparison. We can make comparisons with simple nouns and also with clauses. So we can use also the comparisons with nouns. She is more confident than her brother. Confident is a noun, and we can add to it more confident than, so it's a comparative form, and confident here is a noun. She is less talkative than she used to be. Again, talkative is another noun, and we used it in the comparative form, so we added less. So we said she is less talkative than she used to be. Number 2, we often use a superlative with the present perfect and ever. So we can use the superlative form with the present perfect tense and with the word ever. For example, he is the shyest person I have ever met. So shy is an adjective. We used it in the superlative form, and we used it with the present perfect tense. So he is the shyest person I've ever